Hey folks, it's Evan from GoshDarnBlog.com, DirtyFilthyDiscoTrash.com. The wind's blowing outside, so it's kind of crazy right now. So if you hear the wind blowing, it's because it's outside the window. So I'm trying to edit something on page 41 because I have all these. I had some files that got corrupted, and I saved them, and then I have to like edit edit out all the corruption. But I saved it. This is actually from 7 years ago. And as a writer, that happens. You get older and your writing never gets done. That's the way it is. And then you go back to it and you're older and wiser and whatever. So I'm on page 41. I got to remember that because like what I'm doing is I'm trying to find a place where the story starts. And I think it's right here. So I'm going to start it there because I don't like this other stuff at the moment. Yeah, I made a year, but I think I should do it later. Like, have you ever noticed how when you put when they make movies and stuff and they say like 2050 and then like 2050 happens and you're like, why am I watching a movie in 2050 and it's 2050? Are you watching a movie in 2025 and you're like, this was made in the 80s? Didn't they know? I should probably make it like 3,000 or 4,099. But anyway, there's one tip for you. Anyway, I'm gonna start right here with the curse words. Two fucking assholes. This guy gets abducted and he's got a gun in his face, and that's where I want to start it because it's like, I mean, my opinion is if you don't start things in the action, like you're really screwing yourself up because you watch any movie and they'll always start the ending with like a gun in the guy's face. You're like, how did I get to this point? And then they have a flashback, and I mean, you can watch Fight Club that happens, and all these other movies. That's the formula. So maybe I would do that. I mean, a professional would do write a book any way, more than one way. It'd be like, well, here's the one, here's the formula here, here's another version, and I wrote it differently here. So by me showing you this, you're going to understand like how important editing it is. And do you need other people to edit? I mean, yes, ideally it's good to have other people read your book and give you feedback, and you take it usually. Usually people will give you ideas and you can just take them. They're not interested in getting compensated for any ideas they give you. I mean, that's how I grew up in academia. And I would say if you haven't gotten an MFA in creative writing, or get one because it's pretty good. But you don't have to. There's online things you can do. That's interesting. There's the Warriors movie. Like somebody put like a repeat in 2 hours, like Warriors come out and play, and that's online. You can watch that over and over again. So sometimes you just put notes in there. Why? Because it was just in your head, and you vomit it on there, so you don't forget it. It doesn't really matter. Writing's that interesting. Like, it doesn't matter. Jeez, got myself talking on my phone. Jeez Louise. That's what happens when you got more than one thing going on. There's wind blowing. Maybe I could put that in the book. Wind's blowing crazy against the side of the van down at the harbor. He's got a gun in his face and the wind's blowing. You see what I'm saying? Like you thought this was hard, and then I'm showing you how easy it is. And it's not easy, but it is something. Anyway, so what I'm gonna do, and I'm gonna try starting here because you need motivation. Like you can't if you're not motivated by the work, and the story is 7 years old, and I haven't worked on it in that long. I mean, you got to get motivated. You got to go. Well, what point of the story do I get interested? Well, at this point, these two fucking assholes abducted me. That's interesting. Let's start with that. So I'm gonna edit it from this point. And as you can see, I wrote a bunch of stuff out, and I gotta redo it. And this is called vomiting on the page, guys. And you should get used to vomiting on the page. And if you don't like writing, you can pull out a recorder and start talking into it. The same way I'm talking to a YouTube video, you can start talking into it, and you'll be ahead of the pack. Because a lot of people don't understand that you can be a writer and talk into talking to a freaking recorder instead, and then talking to it, and then type it out later. That's a great way to do it. So you got a lot of curses in this. Here's another one. In a warlike situation, if you think your strategic plan is going to work, like going straight up the hill of victory, no problems, then you'll soon find you're fucked. I don't know. That's okay. Maybe I'll use that. But every paragraph, every sentence could be the first sentence, and you got to pay attention to that. Because what if your first sentence stinks and you're just committed to this crappy first sentence that doesn't get anybody interested in the book? You got to go ahead and just play with it like I am. It's like, is these two fucking assholes a good first sentence? It's not bad. There's worse than that I've seen. The worst one is, and I've used this in one story because I was writing a Halloween story. It was a dark and stormy night. That's the most cliche things you could ever use, and you don't want to do that. But I did it once, and that story hasn't been published. But I like to write how people talk, and Stephen King will tell you to do that. If you haven't read Stephen King on writing, pick that one up. The big writers will always tell you to write how people talk, and you'll never get away from it. But of course, that would work, and you should remember that. Uh, so I'm just going to spend some time moving all these words around until they work and they look good. And it's due to my satisfaction, not to someone else's satisfaction today. I've actually been a writer for a long time, probably since I was, well, technically since I was like 5 or 4 years old, because my mom was a teacher and she was actually writing stories for me because I was drawing pictures. And she'd go, "What's happening in this picture?" And she'd draw it on my damn picture and write it down. So technically, she taught me to write. And then there was other things that happened. I was winning awards by the time I was in the sixth grade, and it was crazy. And so, if you want to hire me to be your editor, please do. I'll charge you the big bucks. And but this doesn't make sense. So this can't be the first line because it doesn't make any sense. Like he'd have to be in war. I don't even know where I got this. I don't know if I made this up in my head. I don't know what happened there. Who knows? I could have been watching a documentary and it came out of that. But it's probably bullshit. Like I probably made it up in my head and I have no idea what I'm talking about because I've never been in war. And that's okay. You can find books that have been totally made up out there. Like somebody just sat down and they'll go, I'm going to write a book about, these guys who go hunting. And none of it's like legitimate. You know how many times I heard you watch a movie and about science and like apocalypse and like a star is coming down to hit Earth or asteroid, and all the scientists are like, "That's not how it works." Like that happens over and over again in movies. So you're allowed to do that. It's called fiction. So you're allowed to make stuff up, and if you can make stuff up really well, you're gonna have huge success. If you can convince somebody that this is real when it isn't. A lot of I was just reading yesterday that Ray Manzarek was really upset at Oliver Stone because he's like, Jim Morrison wasn't like this. He wasn't a drunk like this. He was a really smart guy. And he graduated from college, and this movie said he didn't. So why would a Hollywood person like Oliver Stone make up a story about Jim Morrison when he could have just looked at Jim Morrison's life and made it real? Why did he do that? I mean, I don't know. I don't know if there's any interviews of him asking him why he did that. I mean, it'd be interesting for him to answer that question, but it probably has to do with Hollywood and the way they do things and making money and getting people's attention like I am right now. Like these two fucking assholes is the first line. Like anybody goes, "What's this shit about?" I like it when the main character curses. I'm not looking for, somebody who likes I'm not looking for an audience that likes to knit and crochet here. You know what I'm saying? I'm looking for an audience that like makes crime stories and fiction like that. So go ahead and play with your writing and rewrite it. And because as you can tell, I got a lot of words here. Some of it's on repeat because I had more than one file that was corrupted. So I imagine if I went through this, it'd be copy. But it was two files, and I did two different things in those files. So when I was writing this, I said, I'm going to do it this way. And then I went to another file, and I already edited it, and I have another file I could show you. Is it open? Yeah. No, it's not open. Crap. Anyway, but I have another file. Yeah, it's up here. I have another file where I did it this way, where the first sentence was most dangerous city on planet Manhattan, because in the future it says 21.99. I think I'm gonna do this like 31.99. Why should I do 2000? That's what we're living in. That'll be bad. You don't want to date yourself. That'll be bad. How about yeah, 31.99 seems legit. I mean, can you imagine if you were around in 31.99? See, what I think about when it comes to 31.99 is like, what if the person is the same as me? And like, what if like 1,000 years from now, the person acts just like I do? And maybe some technology is different, but he has the same problems I do. I mean, that's what I think about. So what if you took like you had an idea for a historical novel in like medieval times, and you're like, well, what were they like then? What if they were like you? And what if they had the same problems you did? They were just in a different setting, they had different clothes, they had different technologies. And what if they were just like you? I mean, most of the movies you watch, that's what happens. Maybe they talk different because of old English and stuff, but they probably have the same problems you do. Oh, I wish I could tell that girl I love her. Same type of thing. Oh, I wish I had some money because I'm broke. Like that. I mean, that's the human dilemma, and that's what you got to put in your book. I would say that's the most important thing is that put the human dilemma in your book. If you're missing that, you've done something wrong. Yeah, I got a sexual AI brothel. That's interesting. That's a good chapter. I mean, should that be the first chapter? The sexual AI brothel? I don't think so. I think this movie's about. I mean, I think this. Excuse me. This story is about violence. I'm trying to make it a novella because I know I was like thinking I make it in a novel. Now I'm thinking I'm just going to cut things out and make it shorter. And that's a good. Another good challenge is to do that because you're just becoming a professional. The more you edit yourself, the more you become a professional. Like all these people, you go to your writers group at the freaking, locally, and you see how ridiculous people are. They're just like, I wrote this last night. And it took me 30 minutes, and then you've been like re-editing yourself for 8 hours straight before you arrive, and you're like, man, you're an idiot. You don't understand how much it takes to make a good story. Like, well, like what the, time you put time into it, you think about it. You don't just think, well, the first thing is the best. I talk about vomiting on the page, but that's how you get started. It's not how you finish. You know, you vomit on the page, and then you move all the words around until they make sense, and they're it's like poetry in the end because it's like everything smooth. When you read it out loud, you're not like getting caught up in your words. You're not choking on. That's Sean asking me that. Could I change that to Sean said? Yeah. Why do you live here, man? Sean said. I could do that. But I like that actually. That's Sean asking me that. But yeah, I would think about it. Should I say Sean said or should I say, but it's a first person narrative and it's from their perspective. So I think I would keep that. But that's different than Sean said, isn't it? And who's to say that's better? Some authors argue that you should just say Sean said and don't fuck with that formula. But I'm a little different. Always have been, always will be. I tell Sean, but he won't listen. Not all that. I tell Sean, but he won't listen. It's not all that I say. You know what I mean? That's how I could change this up. And if you don't think about that, you're screwing yourself. That's the way it is. And this is not perfect right now. This is a rough draft. And I have to make it perfect. I have to change this. And I have to figure out if that's the way, if I use a lowercase or capital. I think I leave it that way. But this is rough because it's the guy talking and you're trying to see the way the guy talks, or that's my goal. So I would leave a lot of these things that don't look right. I would leave it in there. But I've been in writers groups where they'll tell me, you should just put Sean said, you shouldn't do it that way. And it's like, well, that's what you do, man. No offense, but your books are boring, so go screw yourself. And don't tell people that in your writers group. Trust me, if you don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. I've been in heated debates and writers groups, and I quit some. It got to the point where I just quit. So when I say, edit yourself, you might have to have some experiences around other people before you get really good at editing yourself. Like you're gonna have to see how other people write. Like there's some books over here that I can pick up and just read. And that helps too, because if you start reading a couple pages out of a book that's been published and that everybody knows, you can take that and just add it to the screen right in front of you and be like, well, what if I wrote that way? And it's called, imitation. And that's important to imitate. None of us are an island, we're all affected by each other and ideas fall from the sky. And every idea has been done. Everything under the sun has been done, as I say. Okay, let me go back to the page. It's at the end. So like I was thinking, so it's almost like I got two different stories right now. And you're like, why would you do that? I thought you wouldn't have one. No, I don't give a fuck. But anyway, I could have three, man. Like, what if you were talking to a Hollywood guy that, like, I know you wrote this book, but we want a screenplay and we want you to write it. Now you have two different stories. That's what famous authors used to do. They used to get a job writing screenplays. And they take, there's a story about Rollerball, the movie. It was a short story, and it was like in a big magazine. And some director saw it, and they're like, "Hey, man, write this into a screenplay," and they did. And, totally different story because there's not a lot of dialogue in that movie either, so it's really interesting. But that's what you got to be. Hey, man, I want a pop song written about this story. Oh, you're gonna write a pop song now? Okay. I want a poem written about this story that's like 400 pages. Okay. Now it's 4 pages, right? 4 page poem. I mean, it's just how it is, and you got to think that way. There's going to be people critiquing you if you were like getting this published and it was out there and everybody read it. They critique you in a magazine, they write a criticism of it. I mean, it's just YouTube videos, recaps. It's just stupid. And if you don't understand like how many different ways there is to write something, you're missing the point of being a writer because that's the way life is. It's just so many opportunities, and it's awesome. And like honestly, I wish I had more opportunities that like paid. Like right now, I don't, and so I'm working on my own stuff because I could. I already have. If you want to go check out my short story collection on Amazon, I have a couple books on Amazon. Please do that and buy them. Buy the soft cover and have it sent to your house because it's awesome. I won awards, been published. So there's an asshole. There's an asshole situation going on. Not good. What else could I call him? Jerk, dickhead. Maybe dickhead be better. See, you never thought you could do this. You never thought you could just curse this. So I'm really opening your mind to see. Back in the '90s, there was this guy called Quentin Tarantino that everybody liked. I wouldn't say he's as popular as he was then, but because of situations, but everybody loved that shit. And then there was like in the '70s, there was black exploitation movies, which influenced Quentin Tarantino a lot. So like all these things come and go, and just because maybe nowadays everything's politically correct doesn't mean crap because it could change a heartbeat. And your story with assholes in it and jerks and dickhead language could be famous. We're on the internet, so like I read I don't usually read romance books, but I read one and it was like bisexual and I don't usually read that. But there was some homoerotic things in there. I don't usually read that, guys. But it was on a review site called Book Bounty, and I did it. If you need reviews for your book, it might be a good place to go. I haven't really figured out if it's the place for me yet. It's close, figure it out soon. But there's all sorts of different stories that people have written, and you can enjoy them no matter what they are. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with having. There's nothing wrong with stories, period. But sometimes things are really over the top, and you don't want to read those because sometimes people just aren't right in the head, and they're sitting there writing books. And I met those people, and it sucks. But some people do it for therapy. They're not doing it for wide mass consumption, and I would say I do. So just because I have curse words in here does not mean it's not for wide mass consumption. It is. What do you think I was reading when I was in high school and elementary school? Stuff like this. I wasn't reading like Gone with the Wind, you know what I'm saying? Granted, I should have, but I wasn't. But I read a lot of stuff in English classes. And if like you'll never fail if you go to the classics and reread those, you'll never fail. Like you can't argue with me into that. Moby Dick, go read that, and you'll be shocked at how interesting Moby Dick is. It's just like a 500-page story, and it's just like this is the greatest book ever written. Honestly, I should go find it and pull it out and read it again. I know I have a copy somewhere. Dracula is another good one. You'd be shocked. Like you see the movie and then you read the book, you're like, holy crap, this is insanely good. And you'll see like the first couple chapters, there's no blood or anything. It's like leading up to that, and it's just amazing because they're describing like going to Transylvania and stuff. It's amazing. Like just pull up Dracula. You can probably pull up Moby Dick and Dracula for free up on the internet right now on Amazon, and you'll just be amazed. These are classics for a reason. So I would just say go try reading those two, and then you'll see what you're up against. Then you start putting curse words and everything. Anyway, I think I've said enough. I think you know what to do, and I think you're going to start playing with your writing and rewriting it in ways you haven't before, and you're going to become a better writer. You can thank me if you want to, but honestly, if you need an editor, just let me know and hit me in the DMs and the comments, and there's a way we can connect. So do that, and talk to you later. You have a nice day.